You've only been commissioner now since January.
Yep.
So we're talking 6, 7 months. So is it your plan that you're going to, like, my words, not yours, you're going to make the rounds, whether it's chambers of commerce, whether it's business associations, CBIA, small business, you're going to visit these people and look them straight in the eye, Jonathon, and say, so tell me, what bothers you? What can we do better? You going to do that?
We've already done that, and we're going to continue to do that, listening and figuring out what works on the ground. In addition to the public service that you described, I've been in private practice as an attorney for close to 25 years. I had a real estate and economic development business, so I have a whole private sector side that I take to the table too. So again, our job is to make sure that we lay off the people that are playing by the rules, but have the tools and use them cost effectively and effectively, just in general, to send a message to the marketplace that when people don't follow the rules, there are going to be consequences.
Jonathon, just very briefly, given some of the visits and the conversations that you've had from the business segment,
right,
are there any top 1 or 2 things that they're saying, Jonathon, here's how you can help us?
Well, I think just in general, and I came to the job with this, but it's confirmed it, just a notion sometimes of over-regulation.
Right, exactly.
You want to regulate to be able to make things fair and competitive, to protect consumers, and to be able to weed out the bad guys. But you don't want to regulate just for a money grab or just to confuse people. So when I got into the job, I didn't want to change a lot, personnel or anything, because I was new at it.
Right.
I needed that 6 months plus to figure out what was going on. I probably know enough now to make me dangerous, and to figure out the players, the people, and the law. And the only thing though that I did start, because it was so crucial, is a review of all of our regulations, and they're expansive because of all that we do.
I'm sure they are.
And I call it regulation simplification and modernization. Some might call it deregulation. Basically what it is not getting rid of things that work, but making sure that the things that don't work or the things that are unnecessary are out, and making sure that businesses and consumers can understand the rules of the game and that they're consistent and then consistently applied. Because what I found was there's all this understandable happiness and joy about the regulations being online, but if they're voluminous, if they're overly complex, if a layperson, someone in business can't read them and say, this is what's expected of me, they don't work.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. I applaud your effort, Sean. You don't want to, when I say you, I'm using you in general, you don't want to make regulations so onerous that it discourages people from starting business or staying in business.
We want to be there and be effective. We are a very small agency. We only have, somewhere north of 200 people. It fluctuates a little bit. We actually bring more money in than we cost. We're under $20 million now. To the people of Connecticut, it's a rounding error in the state budget, as you know.
Yeah,
but
20 trillion.
But we bring in, a year or so ago, $44 million in fines, penalties, and licensing fees.
Sure.
But we also want to make sure that the licensing fees actually go to give protection. It's not just about grabbing people's money.
Right.
Does that licensing work? Does it help protect consumers? Is it fair to businesses?
Okay, let's get into some issues. Appreciate the background.
Sure.
And I also, once again, I know I'm doubling back. I applaud your efforts on that balance between what it is that you're chartered to do and the business balance. By the way, you serve at the pleasure of the governor.
Yes.
Which means he just took his second term.
Yep.
So you have 4 years.
Yep, about 3.5 left, and we've already started being more efficient within. The governor a few years ago set out an initiative that agencies should use the lean process, the Kaizen process, to constantly review their processes and simplify them. We did 4 just in the last month. We're improving our processes. We're looking at using technology to be able to help us with enforcement, identify. You have algorithms now that, just like Target knows what kind of toilet paper that you want to buy, that we can predict where violations might be, compare that to not using it, and figure out how to fine tune and do more with less.
Well, I'll tell you this, from a strictly management point of view, Jonathon, my 35 years of management experience has taught me this, that whenever you take over a new department, a new company or whatever, you got about 6 to 9 months to begin to make your mark. This is the general principle. After that, you become you're in the water.
Right.
You know, there's a major expectation on the part of people, whether they work for you, they're in the public, that in your first 6 to 9 months, you're going to make your move.
Right.
You're going to start to make your impact.
Right.
If you wait a year or two, Jonathan, you know, you're just one of the guys.
Yeah,
You're in there.
and we're working quick. We have great staff, and I'll tell you something. Part of this with lean and other things, they're empowered. The people on the front line do the hard jobs. That's why almost on a weekly basis, I go out on the road. Yesterday I was on the propane truck measuring and making sure propane meters were okay, because I learned by seeing the hard work that people do every day on behalf of the people. And
that's almost like the TV program. What is that TV program, John?
when they go,
where the boss shows up. I forgot what the name of the staff.
About.
What's the name of that program, you know? No, they don't know either.
So they're empowered.
It's when the boss goes out.
Yeah, they're empowered to do all this, and I'm seeing what they're doing. And a lot of this process change, you know, it comes from them. So that's the key. And the other thing that we're expecting now is metrics. We want to be able to measure what we do. It's one thing to say, oh yeah, the commissioner went out and spoke to this group of senior citizens about identity theft. But question is, are they safer?
Right.
Was that the best way to do it? So everything that we do that's important, the big problems that we're trying to address, we are applying metrics to, so we can repeatedly look back and say, are we getting the job done?
Yeah, and how you're measuring it. Just,
Yep.
So we're ready for kind of a semi-lightning round.
Sure.
Jonathan, first of all, this is a very, very popular magazine, Consumer Reports. Just editorially, do you think it's a good magazine?
I've used it a lot and before this job, and I'll tell you something, Consumer Reports comes from the Consumer Union, which was the birth of basically the consumer movement in the early part of the 20th century. It has provided so much safety, disclosure to people, and this is a product.
So you're a believer then, Jonathan?
I think it works. Okay. I do think, because guess what? The best way to provide cost-effective consumer protection is through education, helping consumers help themselves. Right. So a lot of what we're trying to do and measure is outreach, giving people the information they need to protect themselves against the modern hazards that they face.
Okay, some issues. Medical marijuana.
Yes.
There was this big article in the Hartford Courant. It was like 4 major pages long, and you were in there, Jonathan, right? How, just quickly, how is your agency involved in medical marijuana? We
do drug control. We oversee pharmaceuticals. We are the first and really the only state in the country to have a true medical marijuana program. It's not Colorado, it's not California, it's not about recreational use. We regulate medical marijuana just like any other pharmaceutical, very strictly done. It's driven by the physicians and by pharmacists that are the only people that are legally allowed to dispense the medical marijuana. And it's another tool in the toolkit for physicians to provide relief from pain, from symptoms, and we're finding now even underlying disease condition.
How are they accepting it, Jonathan? Are they accepting it?
It's expanding. I mean, it is a brave new world, and there is, you know, a lot of misunderstanding, especially because you see Colorado all the time.
Yeah.
But we started when the product went online last September with about 83 physicians. We now have over 240. I think 239 was the count a couple weeks ago. We started when product went online in September with about 1,383 patients. We hit over 5,000 this month. So it is expanding, acceptance is coming, and I'll tell you, we have an epidemic in this country and the state with opioid addiction.
Opioid, you're right.
The deaths over the last 2 years in Connecticut alone have gone up 86%. It's affected my family. It doesn't matter where you are, rural, suburban, urban, it hits everybody. Pills, heroin. This is a viable alternative to opioids. You can get a lot of the pain relief from these products. And it's not about smoking, a lot of them, innovation on the ground. Over 140 jobs created, good jobs, from this program in its beginning phases. A lot of it's not smoked, they're edibles, they're tinctures, it's vaporized, and it not only is an alternative to opioids, but it's something that can have Connecticut be on the cutting edge of research and everything else. So it's a job creator too.
I think from a public relations point of view, everything that you said needs to get out there and be known because people do have a perception of California when they hear medical marijuana.
I would just really quickly, the innovation on the ground here, because it's important, going and like about only 30% or so, might be a little higher, but anecdotally, of the medical marijuana is smoked in the traditional way. All these amazing products, sort of like Listerine strips, oils that you can cook with or that you can rub on topically.
Well, you know what it is? If it becomes an accepted practice and it's a good practice rather than a fraudulent one, Jonathan, entrepreneurial spirit will take
Right.
over. And it's like any other business,
Yep.
for want of a better word.
We don't allow pesticides. It's pure. They're labeled, and a lot of it is not the product THC that gets you high. A lot of it is the CBD,
Yeah.
the other cannabinoids that provide a lot of relief. It's a medicine.